Okay, hi brothers and sisters, we're back for part 2. So we left off in Isaiah 29, and I wanted to pick it up, those verses. And thou shalt be brought down, and shalt speak out of the ground, and thy speech shall be low out of the dust, and thy voice shall be as of one that has, it says, come ghost-like from the earth. That's the Holy Ghost we identified. Out of the ground, and thy speech shall whisper out of the dust. Now, if we continue on, we see what's to happen after this event takes place, which is the daughters of Israel reborn out of the dust of the earth, or rebirth out of the dust of the earth. Verse 5, moreover, the multitude of thy strangers, or let's do the other rendering here, HCSB. How many foes will be like fine? Your many foes will be like fine dust, and many of the ruthless like blowing chaff. And then suddenly, and in an instant, oh, I like that, you will be visited by the Lord of hosts with thunder, earthquakes, and loud noise, storm, tempest, and a flame of consuming fire. This is verse 7, the wrap-up. All the many nations going out to battle against Ariel, the lionesses of God. All the attackers, the siege works against her, and those who oppress her will then be like a dream, a vision of the night. So she's saying, once you begin to turn back to me, the one you turned away from, your mother, and you begin to speak my covenant in the earth, then I will return in an instant, and I will visit you. It says you will be visited by the Lord of hosts, our mother. Yeah, she's the Lord of hosts. With thunder, earthquakes, loud noise, storm, tempest, and a flame of consuming fire. She says, I will destroy and devour at once. That's in Isaiah 42. So we'll look at that briefly, which we've looked at many times. Rest assured, I will leave a lot out that I wanted to cover, because that's just what I do. Okay, Isaiah 42, verse 14. I have long time holden my peace, been silent, woman. I have been still and refrained myself, restrained. She's a restrainer, restrained myself. Now will I cry like a travailing woman. I will destroy and devour. She's the loud noise, the storm, tempest, and a flame of consuming fire. The idea of the storm and the tempest actually takes me back, and there goes a pen, to Ezekiel 13 and what she warns them when they daub that wall up with the lie, with the religious lie. And it says in Job, 31, verse 33, if I be like Adam and hide iniquity in my bosom, and when you go and look the words up, they do so have the idea of daubing it over, covering it over with a bunch of religious lies. Yeah, to empower himself. And that's why she says, I'll bring that wall down that you daubed up with a bunch of lies, whitewashed lies. And I believe Paul actually uses that term, whitewashed, in the New Testament when he's speaking to the Pharisees. Oh, you whitewashed. I forget what he says. But it's an insult. You who cover over the truth with your lies. That's what Paul was accusing of them with the word whitewash that he uses. But if you go to, I'll get there, Ezekiel, I'm going back instead of forward like I should. If you go to Ezekiel 13, God says that she's going to visit them in an instant. In Ezekiel 13, it says, O Israel, thy prophets are like the foxes in the desert, those burrowers who dug out the truth and packed in the lies. That's your daubing of the wall. Because they have seduced my people, saying, peace. That's the peace to the daughters. peace, peace, when there was no peace. And then sudden destruction shall come upon them as a woman in travail. That takes you back to your men in Jeremiah. Why now do I see every man with his hands on his hips as a woman in travail, and every face turned pale? Because they're trying to say that they're made in the image of the all creator, all life giver. Well, that's female, not male. So there's a lie somewhere, and it's the daubed up lie that Adam locks in. And so it takes us here. It's a saying peace, and there was no peace, and one built up a wall, and lo, others daubed it with untempered mortar. Say unto them which daub it with untempered mortar. That's a bunch of religious lie, right? That it shall fall, there shall be an overflowing shower, and ye, O great hailstones, shall fall, and a stormy wind shall rend it. And lo, when the wall is fallen, shall it not be said unto you, where is the daubing wherewith ye have daubed it? Your lies, your religious lies, that Adam daubed over and locked in the harlot spirit and accused. That's what he did. So she says, your many foes will be like fine dust, and many of the ruthless like blowing chaff. That one takes it to Zechariah 4. She says, I'll take your mountains, your rulers, your he-goats, and I'm going to make them like chaff. I'm going to beat them small. And it has the idea of the stone that grows into a great mountain that is used to bring the false image down in Daniel chapter 2, which smashes the toes, which then it's a stone cut out without hands representing the Holy One reborn upon the earth. That's the daughters of Israel. And it's akin to taking down the religious lies of man as God, 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 or God. He is your life giver. He's not your life giver. She's the life giver. Your eyes testify to that one every day of your life. So you will be brought down. Your many foes will be like fine dust, and many of the ruthless like blowing chaff. Then in an instant you will be visited by the Lord of hosts with thunder, earthquake, loud noise, storm, tempest, and a flame of consuming fire. And all the multitude of the nations that fights against my daughters, lioness of God. That's right, Ariel. Even all that fight against her and her munition, and that distress her, shall be as a dream of a night vision. Just a bad dream. So we see all the connects here to this particular passage. Now, we're going to return, and I was going to finish reading Isaiah 42. I've read it like hundreds of times on this channel. And anybody who's been with me, you already know the chapter, Isaiah 42. She says, long time have I holden made peace. Now will I go forth, and I will destroy, I will devour. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make darkness light, crooked things straight. So this is Israel personified as a woman, because Israel was a woman. The daughters was where the covenant of God was found at their mouth. And Job testifies to that. He says, I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? For what portion of God is there from above? The inheritance of the Almighty from on high. So he's saying his wife. Yeah. So anyway, back to Revelation 6:2, where we began. So I'm sorry if I'm fumbling. I apologize. So we're probably going to go in many directions here. But we were taking a look at the words in Revelation 6:2. And I saw and behold a white horse. And we say it's daughter Zion, daughter Israel. And there's definitely a physical component and a spiritual component, because that's what we are. We're physical and we're spiritual. And so the XY would be the temple representation, as in the body, though there's two. And then your spirit is represented by the woman. So temple, male. So it's as if you exalt the temple, you also exalt the spirit inside the temple. Well, the spirit inside that temple is supposed to be the Holy One of Israel, whom they cast down, and they made a covenant with a harlot spirit that would exalt man as God. So we already kind of looked at that a little bit with the temple and the house in the forest of Lebanon, and how that all kind of played out. So we're going to continue to look at the words here. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and she that sat on her had a bow. That means a covenant. And a crown was given unto her, and she went forth. So we're going to look at the word went forth. That's Strong's Greek 1831. It's exerchomai. It means to go out, to come out, to out from, okay, to issue. Now there's an important term, to issue, figuratively or literally, to come forth, out, depart out, escape, right? Get out, to go. So, you know what I had this connected to? Anybody watched my channel, you probably might be thinking in similar terms. The female descendant that issued forth out of the drought house of Baal in Micah 5:2. Now we looked at it, and it is a female descendant when you go look at it. And it's feminine now, and it has the idea of a descendant, but also a drought house. And so what we're told here is, and was given unto her, and she went forth conquering and to conquer. Now, this looks like this is all the physical element taking place upon the earth in allegorical terminology. So she's issuing forth out of the drought house of Baal. Baal is another name for your husband. Those archers in Joseph's blessings who shot at the female scions to take their covenant out of the land. Yet her covenant, Israel's covenant, abode in strength. Where was I going? I'm going to Micah. Okay. I actually wanted to get through this pretty quick. I don't want to be that long, but I will. And I know nobody's receiving it, but it states the reason why in the scriptures, due to the hardness of your heart. And if man's heart, and woman's heart by extension, hasn't become hardened to the divine feminine, I don't know what it has become hardened to. It has become so, well, it says stout-hearted. And I'll read that in a minute. But, okay, so Micah 5, now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. He hath laid a siege against us, he hath, with the harlot in his heart, against us. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. So we're told she's the judge. Yeah, that one verse verifies that she's the judge. She also sits to the right hand of the high priest. And Psalm 110, and her number is 136, and she strikes through kings in the day of her wrath. Why? For the same reason that you see God mocking in Psalm 2. The kings took counsel to cut her bans, her court, her laws off of them. So then you see her in Psalm 110 striking through kings in the day of her wrath. Yeah. And this is her in Revelation 6:2 doing that. For anybody who can reason. So, gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. Yeah, she's going forth. She's issuing out of the drought house of Baal. Yeah. He hath laid a siege against us. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek. They did that. We found that actually in Ezekiel 19 in allegorical terminology. But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah. It's funny, it's Ephratah. That's another name for Ephraim. It's feminine here. That's because you're looking at the divine feminine. Though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee, issuing forth, out of thee, shall she come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel. That was always promised. The first dominion was promised to the daughter of Israel, the daughter of Zion, whose going forth have been from of old and from everlasting. You go look up some of them words and you're going to find that drought house. And this is her issuing out of that drought house. And I would suspect she's gathering herself in troops. Gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. right? So it's akin to that same restrainer in Isaiah 42. Going forth, I will lead them in paths that they have not known. And then you see them, she's gathering them from the four corners of the world. So gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. He hath laid a siege against you. They shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek, which they did. They silenced her. So she says, long time have I been silenced. I have been restrained. Now will I go forth like a travailing woman. I will destroy and I will devour at once. But then she's shown gathering her children as Ephraim, the horns of Ephraim. And she's shown gathering the women, the daughters. In, I think it's Jeremiah 30 or 31, Zephaniah chapter 3, and Micah chapter 4. And they're specified as females, women. So they're the remnant of Israel, her daughters, that she gathers. And so here you have whose goings forth have been from old and from everlasting. Therefore will she give them up until the time that she which travaileth has brought forth. Then the remnant of Israel shall return unto the children of Israel. So she returns back, is what she does. She's the rod that was cast out in the lands of the Gentiles, which was done by God's design to fulfill a promise that she made to her firstborn Ephraim, the daughter, in Isaiah 49, like we looked at. So this word's important, because I do think there's got to be a distinction between the physical and the spiritual elements that's taking place here. And so I tend to think Revelation 6, when we see these horses being released, it's the physical component, but in an allegorical terminology. So she went forth, she goes out, she issues forth. That's the female descendant that's issuing forth out of the dried house of lies, Baal, out of the Baal house. When you go in, you look at your words in Micah 5:2. She's coming forth out of the drought of lies that he's told. So conquer, right? She was given unto her a crown, and she went forth conquering and to conquer. So conquer is Strong's Greek 35:28. I conquer, I am victorious, I overcome, I prevail, I subdue. It's from 3529, which is Nike, which means victory. Properly conquer, overcome, to carry off the victory. Yeah. To come off victorious. The verb implies a battle. But I'm going to tell you it's the strong Hebrews word 344, which tells who is victorious. It's the female victors that this word is referring to. That's right. She's conquered. She's conquered. And her arrows, as we discussed in another video, are here on earth. And the arrows is akin to her words that she loads that bow with, that you see her with, her covenant. Because it's been reborn in the earth. These words on her daughter's tongue. And like a sword, they've been sharpened and readied for the day, prepared for the day. Meanwhile, his has become pretty dull. Because he's not bothering thinking, well, he's got to actually go in and study anything. The theology is all shaped. It's he. Meanwhile, mother's been sharpening her sword for the day of the Lord, which you find that sharpened sword in Ezekiel 21, where God says, turn ye one way or the other. Because the judgment is here. They smote the judge upon the cheek, but she is the judge, make no mistake. And so, conquer. She's overcome. She's conquered. Now we're going to take a look at Revelations 19:11. Okay. So I just want to check here where I'm heading. Okay, so that's 19:15. Okay, so is that the next one? I think that's the next one. Okay. So, we're going to read Revelations 19:11. That's the next one. I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider is called Faithful and True. These are important words. Very important words. Because we're going to go to the Old Testament, and we're going to look up where we actually find these two words together as one. With justice, she says, I don't take bribes to favor anyone. I never did. I side with the one who is in the right. And in this case, I'm going to side with my daughter. With justice, she judges and wages war. So you find her in Psalm 110 at the right hand of the high priest, whose number is 113. That's Joshua. You find Joshua getting his new garment, his new body, in Zechariah chapter 3. To which then mother turns him to this group of women to be wondered at. They're not men. And she says, from thence will come the new branch, the new female scion from this group of women. And so she's looking for the one that's going to conquer the lie, the religious lie. She's looking for the one to gather troops. Gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. She's looking for us to come together as sisters. Men seem often able to hold together. Meanwhile, women will bash and beat up on each other. Well, that's due in part to the religious lie spewed by men who love to see us tear each other apart. And those harlots who thinks they're so righteous and smart and really just are falling in the snare that he laid for her to fall into. But this word faithful and true is very important in our understanding. Now, if you go in the Greek, it doesn't give you feminine. Let me look at it here. Okay. Do I have it up? Okay. Well, we're going to pull it up. Okay, so we go parallel. And we go chapter 6. And then we're going to go to chapter 19. Sorry, I thought I had this one pulled up. It didn't. And it's verse 11. I apologize. So verse 11. And we're going to look up faithful and true in the Greek, just to compare, because this word is so, it is a word in the Old Testament. So it's got faithful, 4103. It's an adjective, trustworthy, faithful, believing, persuaded, properly, faithful. Loyalty to faith, all right? Well, faith in what? You don't want to have faith in a lie. It better be in the truth. That's what faithful means. Faithful to the truth. Not faithful to a lie, to a religious lie, but faithful to the truth. True, 228. An adjective. True, literally made of truth, real and genuine. Well, that's what always bothered me about reasoning. You can have as much reason as you want. Truth don't matter to the saints. They're so brainwashed by a religious lie. Truth don't even matter to them. That's why this one has and bears the title of faithful and true. That's right. It's this daughter who is gathering her troops. That's right. Gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops, to the truth. Not to a religious lie that absolutely makes no sense. And for anybody who actually says the truth matters and goes in looking for it with it reasoning out, cannot deny the facts that is presented in God's very creation that backs it up and validates it. And yet they do. Oh no, the truth matters to me. I'm faithful to that. No, you ain't. You're faithful to a lie that they told you was the truth and don't make no sense. And it doesn't. So no saint wants to look at me and preach a he, as your life giver and tell me that the truth matters to them and that it reasons out, because it simply does not. God says you're without excuse. I manifested my Godhead in what I created. God did not create three males with a male as your life giver, though he taught it that way because he knew it empowered him on this earth to write laws against you. And you're the harlots that's empowering him, and he's the one that exalts that harlot and loves it. Well, if that's the kind of man you want, well, snip, snip, you'll be cut away with him. So faithful and true in the Old Testament is the word we really want to look at in this case. And it's hard because we know the little book is made up of parts and parcels of this Bible throughout, that they threw it here, they threw it there, a piece here, a piece there, that you are going to have to take and piece it together as the truth. And it's not always easy to do. And you're going to make mistakes. But the general consensus from God is that your reasoning is going to make sense. All right? And it's going to validate the creation to the extent that you see male and female walking upon this earth, and the female is your life giver, and that she is the one that man yokes under a religious lie and law. Yeah. Does that reason? No, that don't reason at all. Of course it does. You just don't want to receive the truth because you have hardened your heart to the divine feminine. You hate her. You still hate her even yet today. She says, that's okay. I've got my covenants. I'll cut you away. I've testified. That's the spirit of truth. So where do we find faithful and true in the Old Testament? It's 571. It's emet or emeth. All right? Firmness, faithfulness, truth. Noun, feminine. Adverb. Firmness, faithfulness, truth. Female, you see? So I think what's in the first fruits foreheads is the name Emet, and it's going to testify. They're the mothers that were faithful and true to the covenant of the true living God, the Almighty Ruler. And that's our mother. You will not have life without a mother. You can deny her all you want, but she is the one that rules the heavens. And she is the one that laid it out. And But we did a video on that as well. So that's the word. That's the seal that these daughters are sealed with, the covenant of Mother Israel from the very beginning. And it's faithful and true. Mothers of truth. Mothers that remained true and faithful to the covenant of God. That's right. And I did a video a long time ago. And it links us back to the golem. And the word golem is actually used one time in the scriptures. And it's David that uses it. It says, and David says, you saw all of my substance in the day that I was created. Like, you saw my self-worth from the beginning. So it's something like that. But the word there for substance is the word golem. And so when you go into Jewish folklore, what they'll tell you about the golem is they would take a substance like clay, and they would do the rough outline of a form, a body. And then in order to give life to it, they would write the word Emet on its forehead, and it would come to life. And the way that they stated for them to take the life away from it, all they had to do was to erase the E off of it, off of that place where they had wrote that word. Now, for anybody who knows anything about the Hebrew language, Em means mother. That's right, mother. Emet means truth, right? Does Father give life to you? No, it's your mother. It's your mother that forms the clay in her womb And she says that in Isaiah 29. You told the potter she had no power over the clay. Now, what they won't tell you there is the word Hebrews 70. And it means the birthing chair. Potter. That's right. So, in order to bring on the death of this golem, they would cross out that E, erase the E, and you were left with the word met, which means death. Right. So, what it's actually saying in allegorical terms, and they love to tell you the truth, but in a bunch of lies that they don't even know half the time what the truth is. They've told so many lies. The simple truth here is that you die without your mother. You're dead without her. So I tend to think that the first fruits are going to carry the word emmet, here, emeth, which is going to define them as the mothers who are faithful and true to the covenant of the true living God, their mother, whose image they're reflecting. We don't reflect our Father in the Godhead. We reflect our mother in the Godhead. That's simple truth. That don't make sense though, does it? No. Anyway. So, faithful and true, and with justice she judges, and she does wage her war with the truth. You can only wage war with the truth. We studied Jeremiah 23 on my other channel, and we looked at, with the multitude of counsel from many counselors, she will wage and make her war. And that's taking you back to Asaph, your gatherer, which then takes you to the Koheleth in Ecclesiastes chapter 12 that they call the preacher. It's a female assembler. So it again it's leading us back to this little book that you have to assemble out of the big book. And God says, if you hearken to my counsel, you will be able to assemble the little book out of the big book by taking apart here, taking apart there, through a multitude of counselor. But who has hearkened to my counsel? Who has heard my words? She says. And that's the only way you're going to wage your war. So she goes forth and she conquers. So like I say, this is probably the physical element in allegorical terminology, though I don't know it for 100%, but I suspect it. Okay. So, faithful and true in the Old Testament is strong, Hebrews 5:71. Emmet means firmness, faithfulness, truth. Noun feminine, firmness, faithfulness, and truth. Assuredly, establishment, faithful, right, sure, true, verity, stability, certainty, trust, trustworthiness, assuredness. So, Luke 3:16. But one who is more powerful, she will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. So the Holy Spirit is daughter, Israel, with her truth. That's how you're baptized, in her waters. You are not baptized in blood. You are not washed in blood. When you are baptized, you are to be baptized in the Holy Spirit's water that washes you clean. That's right. And fire that purifies you. So 4442. Fire in Scripture. Fire is often used figuratively, like with the fire of God, which transforms you. You should be on fire for the truth, not for a religious lie. You can have all the faith you want in a religious lie. It will never, never preserve you and keep you alive. It has to reason. Otherwise, you're saying God is God of chaos and doesn't make sense. So which transforms, purifies all that it touches into light. Who's promised to be the light of the world? Israel. She says it is a light thing. Isaiah 49. Let's go there. Right quick. My video is already quite long. Isaiah 49. What does she say? And she's talking to her firstborn Ephraim. She says, and she has made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of her hand has she hid me, and made me a polished shaft. In her quiver has she hid me. So these were the arrows that are going to be used, the words that are going to be used to load this covenant in Revelation 6:2 that she rides out with on her horse. And saith unto me, Thou art my servant, O daughter of Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Then she says, I have labored in vain. They mock her and say, oh, you say she's going to deliver you. Let's watch it happen. So they mock her and they go on, and they've done that for quite a few years. I'd say thousands of years. They've probably mocked her, thinking that it would never come to pass. And she says, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of, it says, Jacob, Israel, and to restore the preserved of Israel, my strong ones, the ones that are rebirthed out of the dust of the earth, still holding the covenant on their tongue, no guile in their mouth. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation. 3:4:4:4. The victors, feminine victors, unto the ends of the earth. She's the light of the world. That's what it just said there. And she said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Israel, and to restore and to preserve Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the ends of the earth. See, that's the promise. When she cast them out into the lands of the Gentiles. And they literally become the mothers of the nations, but they are Israel themselves, claiming those nations. And so we were looking at 4:4:4:2, fire in Scripture. So she will baptize you with the Holy Spirit and with fire. That's her going forth, leading them in paths that they have not known. I will make crooked things straight. The ridiculous notions of those false prophets hurts in Jeremiah 23, who began to prophesy, he, and a father gives life. And that the burden of the Lord, the children, were too much for mother to carry. Oh, he had to. So, which transforms, purifies all it touches into light and likeness with itself. God's Spirit, like a holy fire, enlightens and purifies, so that believers can share more and more in her likeness. Revelations 19:15. Coming out of her mouth is a sharp sword, with which to strike down the nations. That's right. She will rule them with an iron scepter. Where do we find the iron scepter spoken of? Well, after they mock wisdom, Mother Wisdom, Israel, in Proverbs chapter 1, she says, I called and none did answer me. So she says, I will mock you in the day of your calamity. When sudden destruction comes upon you, I will mock you. Because when I hearkened, you didn't want nothing to do with my words. You didn't hear the wisdom in my words. You just mocked and laughed and said, he, and went on your merry way. Even though it didn't reason and make sense. And you basically called God a God of no reasoning or sense. But the mocking wisdom in Proverbs 1, she says, I will mock you because when I called you didn't answer. Takes you to Psalm 2, where she says, now I'm going to mock and laugh at you. And I'm going to send a rod of iron. Yeah. And that's in the form of her daughter, who is taking her wrath out on the kings of the earth for not hearkening to the spirit of her covenant in Psalm 110, who says to the right hand, in that case, to the high priest, 113, and her number is 136. So the branch that comes forth from these women of wonder sitting opposite to Joshua in Zechariah 3, Mother says, from thence will come your branch, my female scion. And she says to him in Psalm 110, and his mother's number 3068, she says, I will send the strength of your branch out of Zion. So it is so identifying the daughters going forth. And she says, I will say, this one was born here, was born in Israel, was born in Zion. That's what she's saying. Because they're holding the spirit of the original covenant on their tongue. So they come from that root. You find that in Romans 11. Oh, it's been ages since I've been in Romans 11. Let's go there for a minute. So Romans 11. Okay. Romans 11. What does she say? I think it's 11. Maybe it's 15. So, verse 15, Romans 11, for if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? We're talking about the daughters of Israel, the daughters of Zion. For if the first fruits be holy, the daughters, the lump, that means the body, is also holy. So the lump you get referenced as the body in Romans 8 or 9. So the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches. We know the root was holy. That was Israel. And we get wisdom spoken of as the tree of life in Proverbs 1 or 2. Might be 2. And so it's telling you they cast off these daughters, right? That's right. But it says the reason why. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world. So when she cast the rejected daughters, because the men of Israel did not want them in covenant, they chose harlots that Balaam and Balak sent into them. And in effect, they cast out the righteous daughters of Israel, who ends up in the lands of the Gentiles, which we just read in Isaiah 49, that they claimed them as their own. So it's actually Israel herself claiming the Gentile nations. For if the first roots be holy, the lump is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches. So she says, I hear a familiar spirit as of one who speaketh out of the dust of the earth. And it's these daughters who were cast off to reconcile the nations back to Israel herself and to the spirit of her covenant. All right? Now, where else was I going? There was somewhere else I wanted to go with that. All right. So, but life from the dead. That's what I wanted to. I want to go to Isaiah 26 and prove this. So, for if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? So, we know it's her because we go to Isaiah 26. All right? Okay, Isaiah 26. It's a matter of just piecing your passages together through a multitude of counselors. Where am I? Okay. Isaiah 46. Or no, I said 26, didn't I? It's 26, not 46. I'm sorry. I'll get there. Okay, so Isaiah 26, what does it say? Where is it? Sorry. Verse 18. Isaiah 26, verse 18. We, women, woman, Israel, has been with child. We have been in pain. We have, as it were, brought forth wind. Wind, empty doctrines. Go to 417 Greek for your allegory. We have not wrought any deliverance in the earth. Get it? They haven't delivered their children through the truth of Mother God's covenant, which is found in Deuteronomy 4 as the 10 Commandments. That's right. In the earth, neither have the inhabitants of the world fallen, but thy dead shall live together with my dead body. Shall they arise, awake and sing, ye that dwell in the dust, for the dew is as the dew of the herbs, and the earth shall cast out the dead. Actually, it says her light will give life to the dead in other translations. So again, we see in Romans 11, the casting away of them, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? Which is going to take you to Isaiah 26. Yeah. And then she says in Isaiah, again, 46. So let's go there. Did I pull this one up? Okay, Isaiah 46. She says this. Even to your old age and gray hairs, it says, I am he. I am she, Israel. These daughters. I am she who will sustain you. I have made you. That means I formed you in my womb, dust of the earth. And I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. That's what she says there. Verse 3, listen to me, O house of Israel, all the remnant of the house of Israel, who have been sustained from my womb and carried along since birth. That's not a father. Can you not reason the simple truth out? God made male and female. Unless God is a liar. And I'm going to testify to you, God is no liar, man is. Who testifies to the religious lies of Baals because it tasted like honey on his tongue, but it was wormwood in his stomach. It was going to kill us. It's not leading to eternal life. It never will. A lie will never take you home to our mother. So, Revelations 19:15, coming out of her mouth is a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. She will rule them with a rod of iron. Again, you go to Proverbs 1 and you go to Psalm 2. You want to know who's talking. And it is not a man. And the number identified in Psalm 2 when she says, this day have I begotten thee. It is the daughter Zion's number. She has begotten her daughter Ephraim, who now rides forth to conquer and loads it with her arrows in the earth, known as her daughters that she gathers and gives life to, once again, through the spirit of the truthful covenant, not the lie of man. So, she treads the winepress of the fury of her wrath. We find her wrath again in Psalm 110. But we also find it mentioned in Isaiah 63. Now they want again put this as a male. It is definitely not a male. It is definitely female. So, Isaiah 63. This is what she says. Victory! Oh, there's the victor who went forth to conquer. We just told you how she does that. Alright. Who is this that cometh from Edom? That's another name for Adam. With dyed garments from Basra. She's attacking the harlot spirit in the midst. A man has exalted, which we discussed on the last video, and discovered that it was King Solomon who changed the portion in the midst in the house of the forest of Lebanon, which was where the government of God met, as a congregation of women described in Psalm 68, which then is going to take you to Isaiah 14, and then further validates the fact that it is feminine by bringing in Lebanon. It says, since no feller has come against us. It says, let's go to Isaiah 14 first, and then we'll read this one. Right there. What did they say? Sorry. See if I can find the verse pretty quick. Okay, so I got to backtrack here. I apologize. I never know what I'm going to throw in, but there's quite a bit. Should take Proverbs. Where is it? So the Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. Okay, verse 8. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of where? Lebanon. That's a house in the forest of Lebanon, where the congregation of the Lord, identified as women in Psalm 68, met in the north. That's a house in the forest of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is coming up against us. We discovered those fellers who were like axemen welding axes in a forest. That's your house in the forest of Lebanon. In Psalm 74, I believe. I'm pretty sure it's 74. I don't think it's 78. And they come against her house, the house in the forest of Lebanon, and wipe their name out of existence. And they say to one another, none of us knows how long this will last, how long this will be. But they say, no feller is come up against us, right? So, yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down. So then you go to Hosea 14, and it says, Israel will blossom like the lily, and have roots like Lebanon. You see? So it's identifying the divine feminine, because it takes you to Song of Songs. It says, thy wife, thy spouse, is a garden, a fountain shut up. In Song of Songs 4:12, and in verse 15 it says, that flows from Lebanon. So it's identifying Ephraim, the daughters of the north, and it says, but when King Solomon exalted himself, because the harlots exalted him, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the where? The north. That's Lebanon. The house in the forest of Lebanon. This is all feminine. This is all feminine. So Isaiah 63 is the victor. So that takes us to 6:2 in Revelations. Excuse me. Who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Basra? So what King Solomon did was he changed the house in the forest of Lebanon from the flock of Basra in the midst, from righteous daughters, to harlot spirits that would teach him as God upon the earth, and he exalted himself to the throne of God, is what man does there. And we find mention of the flock of Basra, that portion being changed in Micah 2. Okay? So we'll go to Micah 2. Okay, I probably passed it. You watch. Okay, so Micah 2. Okay, I went by it. Oh, where is Micah? Well, I must have skipped over it when I was going. Okay. Micah 2, what does it say? And we discovered it was King Solomon. It says, okay, where's the mention? Okay, sorry, but there is a mention here. It may take me a while to find it. It says he changed the portion in the midst, is how it's stated. See, now it's in here somewhere, and do you think I can find it? He changes the portion in the midst, it says. Okay, I'm going to pass on this one, but go to Micah 2 because the lighting here is so dim. I can't read very well. I should have thought to turn my light on. Therefore, okay, it's verse 4. Sorry. In that day shall one take up a parable against you and lament with a doleful lamentation and say, we be utterly spoiled. He hath changed the portion of my people. My people, she says. They're my people, not his. My people. That's Israel, the daughters of Israel saying, my people, they're her children. And she says, we be utterly spoiled. He hath changed the portion of my people. How hath he removed it from me, turning away? He hath divided our field. He has changed the portion of my people. Well, what is she saying there? Well, he changed the flock of Bozrah is what you're going to find out, to a harlot spirit. So that's why she's coming from Bozrah stained, her robe stained in blood, the harlot. Cut away. Who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? This that is glorious in her apparel, not his. Traveling in the greatness of her strength. I that speak in righteousness am mighty to save. Wherefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments like her that treadeth in the wine fat, not him, her. I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. This is the daughter of Israel. For I will tread them in mine anger, in my wrath. And I will trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiments. That's why her robe, which identifies her, feminine, as the glory, female, is red. It's stained red. Number 1, they, again, if you go to Micah 2, it states that they were pulling off the robe with the garment as if they were men at war. We're told in Lamentations 4:1 that they put to death these precious holy ones of Israel by offering up a blood libation. These were I would say that they were recognized as the wise women or the cunning women of Israel who taught the truth. And they were probably largely your healers of the nation. There was none with me, for I will tread them in mine anger and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. Now why? For the day of vengeance is in my heart. That's the day of the Lord, and the year of my redeemed is come. So those which is gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. Where are my strong ones? My remnant daughters of Israel, holding no guile on their tongue. And the year of my redeemed is come. And I looked, and there was none to help. And I wondered that there was none to uphold. Therefore my own arm brought salvation unto me. The strong right arm in Scripture is identified as daughter Zion. All you got to do is study and reason the passages out in Isaiah 51, Isaiah 52, and Psalm 89. And possibly you'll be able to put it together for yourself. And I will tread down the people in mine anger and make them drunk in my fury, and I will bring down their strength to the earth. So she's getting ready to bring the strength of the holy people down. And the strength that they rely on is the harlot spirit that exalts them. That's right. Exalts man, and then man exalts that harlot in his heart because it exalts him to do so. So, but she says, Revelations 19:15, coming out of her mouth is a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. Now, this is a two-edged sword. And I'm going to read the commentary on it, some of it that I wrote down, but you can go in and find the commentary on this yourself. Revelations 19:15. With which to strike down the nation, she will rule them with an iron scepter. Again, you go to Proverbs 1 and Psalm 2. She treads the winepress of the fury of her wrath. Isaiah 63. Of God Almighty Mother. And she has written on her robe and on her thigh. A thigh is a symbol of a birthright. That goes to the feminine, not the masculine. Queen of queens and Lord of lords. Now, the Lord of lords you'll find 136 over 113 in this case. So she is the Lord of lords. 136 over 113. Those two numbers again is identified in Psalm 110. The high priest number, which is Joshua, is 113, and he exalts her as his Holy Spirit, and that's 136. And in her anger and in her wrath for what the kings of the earth did to her covenant and to her spirit in the earth, she will strike through kings and bring them down. Do we understand? Okay, now we move on. Revelations 19:15 words. The word sword in Revelations 19:15. A sword, piercing grief. That's what it says. A sword, piercing grief. That's going to take you back to Adam's tongue, his sword, his tongue, when he accused his wife and pointed at her. It brings you this, it brought her a piercing grief and eventually an anger, because he begins to teach himself and his own laws upon the earth as opposed to her and her mother's. And so we have sword 4501, a sword piercing grief, noun feminine. The name of an Egyptian god, a sword, figurative war piercing grief, a long Thracian sword, a sword, a large broad sword that both cuts and pierces, an imposing sword synonymous with finality and dominance. So she's got both edges of the sword, sharp. So the word sharp in Revelation 19:50, 3691, sharp, swift, probably akin to the base of acmen, acid, keen by analogy. So to sharpen your sword makes you keen in the word. Sharp, swift, Acmen 188, at the present point of time, noun feminine, even now. So that kind of takes you back to, so that's 188. Okay, so 369 sharp is going to take you to 188. And 188 in the Old Testament is going to, Greek, is going to take you to Hebrew 227, which means at that time. All right? Which is going to take you to that passage that you find in Daniel chapter 12. At that time. I believe it's Daniel chapter 12. So, rule, we'll go back here and we'll read the verse so we get it. Coming out of her mouth is a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations. She will rule them with an iron scepter. So, rule 4165. To act as a shepherdess, not a shepherd. I shepherd them, I tend them, hence I rule, I govern. Shepherding. That's Genesis 49. From thence will come the stone. That's right, she was the stone rejected, the shepherdess of Israel. They chose a harlot spirit to build their religious lies and laws upon. All right. Then we have, she treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of the God Almighty. Almighty, 3841. I'm saying female ruler, not male. They stuck male there. I'm putting female. Ruler of all. Ruler of the universe. The Almighty, 3841. Which is from 3956, which means all. And 2902, which means prevail. To prevail over a religious lie that teaches that statue that Nebuchadnezzar made out of gold, and then every successive kingdom behind it continued to build that male statue up as God. Well, she grows into a mountain in the earth, that stone cut out without hands, identified as your capstone, female, in Zechariah 4. That's right. that smashes the toes on your false image of a male as your Lord and ruler and God, and she prevails. The Almighty does. Female ruler. That's right. She laid the heavens out. That means with her children. Properly, almighty, unrestricted, power, exercising absolute dominion. That takes us to Micah 4. The dominion belongs to daughter Zion, who flows from Lebanon, the north kingdom, Israel. So, she says, she treads the winepress of the fury, with the fury of her wrath of God Almighty, verse 16, and she has written on her robe and on her thigh, Queen of Queens and Lord of Lords. So, iron scepter, she will rule them with an iron scepter. Rod, okay, 4464, staff, rod, noun, feminine, ooh, a rod, a staff of authority, scepter, with a rod of iron indicates the severest, most rigorous rule, hence is equivalent to a royal scepter. That's right. Rod, scepter, staff. From the base of Raphizo, a stick or wand. All right. Or a twig, a rod, a branch. That's right. The female branch comes forth. The word tread. All right. So what did it say again? She treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God Almighty. If I got that wrote down right. Tread, 3961. Authority to tread on serpents. Ooh, yeah. That's what she's going to do. Press 3, okay. Press is 3025 feminine. Wine press. Wine, 3631 masculine. Wine, what you got drunk on. And she's going to press the religious lie out. That's right. That's what it kind of is allegorical to. Just trying to get through this pretty fast because we're getting long. So, Revelations 19:15. Wrath, 3709. It's feminine. Anger, wrath, passion, punishment, vengeance. From. To team, swelling up. To constitutionally oppose. So, we're bringing in the government. Properly a settled anger or a settled opposition, i.e., rising up from an ongoing fixed opposition, 3709. Settled anger proceeds from an internal disposition which steadfastly opposes someone or something based on extended personal exposure, i.e., solidifying what the beholder considers wrong, unjust, and evil, meaning to teem, to swell, and thus implies that it is not a sudden outburst, but rather referring to God's fixed, controlled, passionate feeling against sin, she. Oh, they love to say women get out of control emotionally. No, they don't. This is controlled. This is a witnessing in the earth to a simple truth that anybody who has their eyes open can bear witness to, but refuse to because of the hardness of their heart. Controlled, passionate feeling against sin. A settled indignation, anger, indignation, vengeance. From ora goma, properly desire as a reaching forth or excitement of the mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. By analogy, violent passion, ire, or justifiable abhorrence. By implication, punishment, anger, indignation, vengeance, wrath. You think she's not entitled? All the yokes we've had to wear, all the religious lies and laws that we've had to wear around our necks and drag us down. Ellicott's commentary, or Ellicott's commentary for English readers, Revelation 19:15. And out of her mouth, now translate, and out of her mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with, and literally in, it she may smite the nations, and she herself shall shepherd them with literally in, that's in brackets, a rod of iron. And she herself, not himself, treadeth the winepress of the wine of the wrath of the anger of God, the all-ruler. The all-ruler is she, not he. The sharp sword is the same that we have read of before in Revelations 1:16. Now this is in their commentary. So Revelations 1:16. In her right hand she held 7 stars, and coming out of her mouth was a sharp double-edged sword. Her face was like the sun, that's Israel, the daughter, shining in all her brilliance. There it was called the two-edged sword. The omission of the epithet in this passage, which describes the word of God as the conqueror and the judge. See? Gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. They have struck the judge on the cheek, it says. So, word of God as a conqueror and the judge is not without significance. The sword is now wielded for but one work. The word that rejected stone, that's the daughter of Israel. We've identified that as a simple truth. Go in and study. Spoke before the false foundation of the world, will judge men and women at the last day. Okay. I'm just about done. Revelation 19:15. The power of this word found an illustration. Now they've got a totally different illustration, so this is mine coming up. The power of this word found an illustration in Daniel 2. That's where it found its illustration. As the rock cut out without hands that smashes the toes on the false image idol of a man as your God, and building up kings on the earth. Okay, now it continues their commentary. And also, no, this is mine, Psalm 22, the doe of the dawn, that man pierced, and yet she and her word will be victorious in the end. She will. Isaiah 3:9, Jeremiah 8:12. So continue. Yet more gloriously will the power of her word be felt. Now I think that's through the Gentile nations that she enlarged her birthright. All right? So more gloriously will the power of her word be felt. So that's comparable to Isaiah 11:4, Jeremiah 23:29, 2 Thessalonians 2:8. When she will slay the wicked with the word of her mouth. The passage in Psalm 2:9 must be borne in mind. Daughter Israel enthroned as queen comes. That's right. She's the one that comes. It's not he, she. Hers is a rule of righteousness. Those who oppose this kingdom of righteousness finds the shepherdess's staff as a rod of iron. That's right. The stone rejected falls upon the builders, that's your masons, that exalted the key of Solomon, the harlot spirit that builds man up as God. That false image. Got it? Nebuchadnezzar. And then the 4 consecutive kingdoms, or the 5, that begins to build that image up until that stone cut out without hands, representing daughter Israel, comes on scene and smashes it with the truth of her covenant. And grinds them to powder. It is thus that the winepress of God's wrath is set up, and the righteous queen appears as one who treads it out. That's right. She's in her field. Revelation 19:15 again. Commentary continued. So Isaiah 63, 1-3. She herself, the emphasis lies here, treads it. Nobody else. We have again the figure of the, what do I got here? The vintage. Made use of. That's Revelations 14:20. It is the harvest of retribution. The wicked are filled with the fruit of their own doings. So is the work seen to be the work of the all-ruler. Now that takes you to she who sits between the cherubim. I believe it's in 1 Kings 11, or no, 19. 1 Kings 19, or it's 2 Kings 19. And it is daughter Israel or daughter Zion that sits between the throne that mocks and laughs And she says, I planned this a long time ago. Yeah. Revelation 19:16, on her robe and on her thigh, she has the name written, Queen of Queens and Lord of Lords. It also says she has a name written that only she knows. So, what it is, it's Israel, or they're akin to it. So those are my notes in this part. Is there anything else I wanted to wrap up here? Okay, so we did that one. Okay, we did Isaiah 52. Okay. Isaiah 29. Revelation 19:11. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something. So Psalm 1:2, the Lord at thy right hand, 110. Psalm 110. The Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of her wrath. She shall judge among the heathen. O gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. They have laid a siege against thee, and have struck the judge of Israel with a rod upon her cheek, it says, or something to that effect. She shall judge among the heathen. She shall fill the places with the dead bodies. She shall wound the heads over many countries. She shall drink of the brook in the way. There we go with the way. I will lead them in paths that they have not known. I will make crooked things straight. I will make darkness light. Therefore shall she lift up her head. The head. Kephale in New Testament. Which is female, which means the Holy One of Israel. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Revelations 19. To form, to fashion. That's an interesting word. Isaiah. Again, Isaiah 46. They mock her. But yet she says, I am the one who has carried you in my womb. Then we find Ephraim, the firstborn of her womb, in Isaiah 49. So Isaiah 26. I think we covered it all. It seems like there was one other thing, but now I can't find it. Okay, we did Isaiah 40. Okay, so I think we're going to leave it on that note. I'm sorry I babbled. I apologize for that. I don't mean to babble. It's pretty long, the video. And like when you're planning on doing a video, for me, it always seems like my thoughts are sharper before I begin making the video, and then when I start making it, I tend to lose track of some of my thoughts. So hopefully some of you know yourself where to head on much of these studies. I don't know that I'll be posting any more videos. If I do, they'll probably be possibly a long time in coming. I thank anybody who's trying to pick the theology up. It is a truth. I believe it's a very simple truth. It's not that complicated. I think you have to be brainwashed. You have to have a stubbornness of the heart not to understand a truth. Of course, the Bible says the world can't receive the spirit of truth. They sure don't seem to want it. They sure don't want to seem to reason the truth out. Lies makes more sense to them than God's simple truth presented in the very creation. And yet you can't make them understand it. And that's why the choice is presented. You can either receive the word of truth, her word of her covenant upon this earth, or you will be cut away. And I also do plan on posting another video that I didn't feel got very many hits, and I know posting it here probably it won't get a whole lot of hits, but it was the discovery of the keys of hell and of death, and I thought it was a very good video. I might have blundered in some parts like I always do, But I thought it's worth posting again, and I think I'm going to repost it here. And that's basically one of the main reasons why I went in and to be able to put a longer video. It wasn't even these. I didn't really plan on these. But that said, they're made now. But I think I'm going to post that video and any others that I feel, really explain things. I thought the Spirit explained them pretty well to me, and I did the best that I could to show them to you. So that was really my reason for enabling longer videos. So I thank you for watching. I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth, and I hope you all have a really good evening. So thanks.